right, welcome back to the Nick and Joe Show. I'm Joe, he's Nick, and I'm here in the studio, the broadcast center for ThinkRadio.ca. Hang on a second, I don't have this in front of me, but I have it memorized. We are broadcasting from the Think Radio Broadcast Center in Canada's national capital. Okay, there it is. Nick is not with me tonight. Nick is out in Killaloe, Ontario, listening to the broadcast, and he is online participating in our live chat room. Unfortunately, we promised we had all of the technical details worked out when we moved from strictly an internet show to being live on terrestrial radio as well, on a couple of FM stations starting tonight. Unfortunately, it appears that we were not able to work out all of the technical difficulties, and I have to take the blame where it is due. The problem is here with me. I just don't have any idea. I have no clue what it is. There it is. And I can't take a break in the middle of the show and look it up on YouTube. And it's YouTube, like, whatever it is, it's, you've heard of the story of the guy that, he's going to try to put things together and fix them and that. And then he's finally going to go, okay, look, I'll check the instructions out or whatever, right? Well, I've checked the instructions out on things and I still can't figure it out. And then I go, oh, well, maybe I should look it up on YouTube. And invariably, the answer to my problem is I can find it on the answers on YouTube. It's just such an amazing device. Anyway, I'm here in the studio in Ottawa with Rod Taylor, who is the leader of the Christian Heritage Party of Canada, and we were talking in the last segment a little bit about his family history and how he got into politics. Well, we didn't really get into the politics, so how you got into politics. So let's take a few minutes, Rod, and just a little bit of your personal history. You were talking about your family history, but what brings you? I didn't know you had grown up in the States. So that's fascinating. So you end up moving to Vancouver, and then you end up moving to northern BC. Now, how do you end up, like, what was your career, like, what was your job, and how did you end up in up north there?
Yeah, well, it's a rather long story, but I'll spare you some of the details. But we moved to Canada. I became a Canadian immigrant along with my family, my parents, and so on, in 1968. And
so they can't accuse you of being anti-immigrant.
No, I am an immigrant. Yeah, right. It's been a while.
See, I can't even say that. Yeah. My parents were immigrants, but not me.
Yeah. So, as a young person, 18, 19, I did a lot of things then. Hitchhiked across the country. I rode the freight trains. I kind of tried to find my way.
Literally?
Literally. I rode the freights down to California one time back in the day. Actually,
I never met anyone who did that.
Well, we were in a boxcar. Yeah, you would be surprised. I don't know what it is like today, but we were surprised to find there was a whole community on the train.
Wow.
Yeah, and of course, one place I know, the local police pulled open the doors. They had automatic weapons. They were looking for an escaped convict, and that wasn't us. So we carried on until we got left on a siding somewhere. So, but I was exploring the world in different ways in those days. I lived for a while on one of the islands, on Texada Island off the coast of British Columbia.
Okay.
And then I moved to the Kootenays, which is sort of the southeastern corner of British Columbia, and lived there for a while. That's where I met my wife, and this summer we will celebrate 47 years of marriage.
47 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but from there we moved briefly to Alberta, where my first sort of job as a husband and looking after my wife, and when we had our first child. I worked on a pig farm, kind of the prodigal son idea there. I found I found hard work on a pig farm in Warner, Alberta, and then we moved up to northern BC to Smithers, same area we live now. Only we didn't stay there then. I was there for about a year, working in a sawmill. Then we moved. I won't go into all the details. We moved to Alberta for 12 years, and I worked mostly on the railroad there, pounding spikes and doing, maintaining track.
What time frame would that have been in?
That would have been 76. We moved to Alberta, and we were there until about 87.
And what area of Alberta?
That time, well, we lived in a little town called McKay, and then Knighton Junction, which is near Edson, between Edson and Edmonton on Highway 16.
I had a relative the reason I ask is because I had a relative, Walter Launhardt, who worked on the railroad in Alberta as well.
Okay.
But they had a farm, they had a dairy farm.
Yeah.
About, I would say probably 20, 25 miles west of Vegreville.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so...
All right. Well, I didn't happen to know Walter, but did know a lot of people.
He would have been, but he would have been retiring in that time frame, so it was...
And then, I had become a Christian about the time we moved to Alberta, and so we were involved in the formation of a little community church there. Then we went down to Caroline, Alberta, where I attended Bible school for a year and a half, wanted to get more involved probably in some type of missionary work.
Right.
Then we ran out of money, and I had to go find some other work.
Paying employment.
What's that?
Some paying employment.
Yeah, exactly. We were sort of living on our savings at that point. But my brother, who also had become a Christian about the same time, he was up in Smithers, BC, northern BC, and he came down with leukemia. And that kind of motivated us to move up to Smithers. I was looking for work anyway, and we moved up to Smithers to spend time with my brother. Now, long story, he had bone marrow transplant and different things happened. He did pass away 27 years ago from leukemia, but in the meantime, we had become really fixtures in the Bulkley Valley, Smithers, and we now live in a little village of Telqua, where I got in Smithers. I got into the lumber industry again. I had done some of that work before, but I became a lumber grader, and I instructed lumber graders, worked in quality control. Ended up the last 9 years of that lengthy period I was working in the village of Morristown, west of Smithers, on a finger joint plant that was a joint venture between the Wet'suwet'en First Nation and the Canfor, the forest company. And so I was working mostly with First Nations people, and we were also attending a church out on the reserve there at that time. So kind of a long story to where we got to where we are. And I guess when I saw, the pro-life issue had become quite important to us, and when I saw in a couple of elections that there was no representative for the unborn, no politician speaking up and being a voice for the preborn, I said, well, somebody's got to do it, and that's how I got involved. And so that involvement has deepened ever since. I ran as a candidate provincially, then I got involved more federally.
Did you ever run for another political party, or was it always CHP? I mean, provincially...
Yeah, provincially, in 2001, I ran for the BC Unity Party.
Okay.
And I had been a member of the BC Conservative Party, first Reform, then Conservative, then the Family Coalition Party, and there was a movement to unite 5 right-of-center political parties and form the BC Unity Party. Former Premier Bill Vander Zalm was involved in that party, and we did reasonably well in that election in 2001. We didn't elect anybody, and between that election and the subsequent election, our leader at that time, Chris Delaney, went and did something else, and there really wasn't a succession plan in place, and so the party kind of fizzled, unfortunately. But in the next provincial election, there was nobody to represent the province. And I said, well, represent the pro-life point of view. And I said, well, I'm not going to spoil my ballot again. If I have to run federally and provincially, I'll do both. And that's what I have been doing since then.
So that's how you got involved in the Christian Heritage Party. So tell me about the path to the leadership.
Okay, well, as a candidate, I wanted to do the best job I possibly could do. I live in the riding of Skeena-Bulkley Valley, which is, I think it's the 5th largest in the country. Anyway, it's about the size of Norway. It's 323,000 square kilometers. And it has about the same number of people as most of the ridings in the country, which is close, around 100,000. Same number of babies that are killed by abortion every year is the general population of most districts. So I, as a candidate, just in between my day job, my work at the sawmills, we would take our holidays and go around the riding and try to talk to people about politics and so on, get to know people, introduce ourselves to pastors and pro-life people in different communities. So we stayed very busy, and I think somehow that level of involvement, the first convention I went to was in Winnipeg in 2005, and I got to know some of the other the leadership people in the party, some of the more active candidates, the existing national board and so on. And in 2008, our former leader, Ron Gray, stepped down. And he is a great man. We still meet with him quite frequently, and he was a great leader, a great mentor to us. And so when he stepped down, I thought, well, you know what? If I were the leader, then I could do this full time. I mean, I liked my work at a sawmill, but I thought this other work was much more important for the country. So I put my name forward, and I was not elected. Jim Natchik from Nova Scotia was elected as leader, but at that convention he invited me to serve as his deputy leader, which was a non-paying position, volunteer position, so I would still maintain my regular employment at the sawmill. But that allowed me to attend national board meetings 2 or 3 times a year. We would meet someplace across the country. So that's how I got to know the national board and so on. The following summer, they sort of saw some of the things that I had been doing in my own community, raising awareness of the party and so on, and they said, how would you like to, they talked about creating a position, a Western Development Director for the party, a paid position. So it just so happened that my sawmill had shut down briefly at that point in time, so it was a perfect timing. I was able to step into the role as a paid employee to devote my time and energy to the Christian Heritage Party, helping it to expand and grow, and serving also as a deputy leader at that time. So one thing led to another. The National Development Director had stepped down, so I became National Development Director. And in 2014, Jim Natchik stepped down, and so I put my name forward. And I don't know if this is good or bad, but nobody else put their name forward. And I think by that time, I think there was enough support that people said, well, I think he's going to be our next leader, and didn't see a reason to put their name
So
on
you were
the
like the 300-pound gorilla that scared everybody else out of the race.
I don't know if that's what happened, or if I was the only one foolish enough to put my name forward. But anyway, I was very pleased and felt very honored to be able to take on that role of national leader of the party. It's a great party. There's great people in it. I think our policies are superior to any other party in the country. And so it's a real privilege to serve as national leader.
Talking about other policies, we were talking in the first segment. We talked a lot about abortion and your own pro-life credentials. So the hot topic today, I mean, there are a handful of them, and they're somewhat related, I think, to one another. But, let's talk a little bit about the party's position, if it has any position, on the whole COVID situation. Do you give the Prime Minister a passing grade, a failing grade? How about just a mediocre grade, a C minus or a D or something like that? Hey, maybe you give him an A plus. I don't know. So talk to me a little bit about your views on this, the whole pandemic, and how it's been handled by our national government.
Sure. Well, I can't give this Prime Minister a high grade on anything he's done. I don't